So this guy, his name's Dave, and Dave's girlfriend just unalived his other girlfriend. So Dave has been casually dating this woman for about 6 months. Her name's Liz. And they're dating, but it's nothing serious. But then one day, he meets another woman on a dating site. A woman he had seen before in the auto shop he works at. Let's call her Crazy. And Dave thinks Crazy is fine. So Dave and Crazy meet up and they go out and they have a really good date. And they immediately end up hanging out back at Dave's apartment. And then later, as Crazy is leaving, Liz shows up. She had stopped by unannounced to pick up something she had left at Dave's apartment. And neither woman appears to really care that the other one's there, nor do they say anything, because none of them are dating Dave exclusively, so it's no big deal. But then, over the next 2 weeks, Dave and Crazy start spending a lot of time together, and she starts crashing at his place at night. But then one day, while Dave's at work, Crazy texts him something that's way out of character. He gets a text from her saying she thinks they should move in together. And Dave's immediately like, nah. And that's when Crazy just snaps. She's like, fine, I hate you. I'm dating someone else. I don't want to see you anymore. Go away. And Dave's like, whatever. But then a couple of days after that, he starts getting more texts and emails from Crazy. And she's cursing him out and just saying really awful things. So Dave, he just tries to move on. And he continues to date Liz. But then Liz starts getting harassing messages from Crazy too. And they're insulting and they're threatening her. And one day she comes home to find from Dave spray painted in her garage. So Crazy's just going all out. But then Liz comes home one day to find her house burned down. And not only that, the fire unalived all her pets. 2 dogs, a cat, and a snake. And immediately Liz lets the firemen know. This fire was set by Crazy. So at this point, Dave is shook. I mean, this is getting out of control. And so he eventually gets himself a pew-pew, just in case. So all this harassment goes on for about 2.5 years, with them getting over 15,000 emails and 50,000 texts. And eventually they get detectives to start looking at this so that they can piece it all together. So detectives look at it, and here's the strangest thing they find. Crazy's been texting people from her phone and stuff this whole time. But no one has seen her in 2.5 years. Not her friends, not her family. No one's seen her since she was dating Dave for those 2 weeks. She hasn't answered any calls. She didn't show up to a wedding she was supposed to go to. And most concerning, in the past 2.5 years, there's been 0 activity on her bank account. So detectives start thinking, maybe Crazy's dead. And if she is dead, then who's sending all these emails and texts? And then soon after that, one day, detectives get a call from Dave. And he is freaking out because someone stole that pew-pew he got. Now Liz thinks it might have been Dave's ex who stole it. This woman, Amy. So Liz stops pointing fingers at Crazy and starts pointing fingers at Amy, saying Amy must have been the one who took the pew-pew. And then Liz goes and she files a complaint against her, saying she's really the one who's been harassing them all these years. But detectives have already started to get suspicious. And not of Amy, and not of Crazy, who they suspect is already dead, but they're getting suspicious of Liz. They start thinking maybe 2.5 years ago, after Liz found out that Dave was also dating Crazy, Liz then went and unalived Crazy and stole her phone. And then maybe for 2.5 years, Liz has been texting people pretending to be Crazy, sending harassing messages and emails to Dave and blaming it on Crazy, and then sending harassing messages to herself and blaming it on Crazy. Maybe Liz graffitied her own garage and even burned her whole house down and blamed it on Crazy. Maybe Crazy wasn't crazy at all. She was a normal woman who was dating Dave for about 2 weeks and then was unalived by a jealous Liz. So that's the theory detectives have. But then the next night, Liz calls 911 and she's at a local park and she says she's been shot in the leg. So an ambulance comes and takes her to the hospital and she tells police it was Amy who came to the park and confronted her with a pew-pew and shot her. But police investigate, and Amy has a solid alibi. So detectives are like, wait a minute, did Liz shoot herself and then blame Amy? So they go and they come up with a plan to trick Liz into giving them information about all these crimes she's committing. So they go to Liz and they're like, hey, we believe you about Amy, but we need your help in getting her to incriminate herself. Can you give us any info? So Liz goes home and she types up fake email confessions from Amy, and she sends them to herself. And in these fake emails, she makes Amy admit to shooting Liz in the leg, and she makes Amy admit to stabbing Crazy 3 or 4 times and then putting her body in a trash bag. bag. So Liz types up these fake emails and then she gives them to the detectives. And detectives are like, wow, this is great. Can you get us more info? So then Liz goes and she makes more fake email confessions, pretending to be from Amy. And in these fake emails, she details exactly how she unalived Crazy in the passenger seat of Crazy's car. So detectives immediately go and search Crazy's car. And in the passenger seat, underneath the seat cover, sure enough, they find traces of Crazy's blood. Liz had indeed unalived Crazy years ago and is now trying to pin the murder on Amy by writing fake email confessions. So police arrest Liz, they charge her with first-degree murder, here's her mugshot, she goes to trial, and she gets sentenced to life. Shout out to Iowa and Nebraska. So this is Judith, and Judith is only 5, but she's on her way to being a Hollywood star. However, there's a problem. Her parents don't have a lot of money. Now, her mom is Maria, and her dad is this guy, Joseph. They're on welfare, and Joseph is just a local plumber, and it doesn't help that he's constantly drinking. But one day, all that changes. See, Maria is determined to get Judith into show business. So she spends a lot of time teaching her to be poised and well-spoken. And then one day, she takes Judith ice skating at an ice rink in Hollywood. Now, this rink is often used as a location to film TV shows and movies. And on that day, there just happens to be a commercial crew there filming. And allegedly, there's a director there, and he sees little Judith ice skating, and he ends up casting her in a different shoot he's doing. And from there, boom. Judith's career takes off. She gets an agent and she lands her first commercial role for Donald Duck Orange Juice. And after that, she starts working more and more and gets placed in other commercials. Then she gets her first role in a TV series called Fatal Vision, where she plays a little girl who's unalived by her father. Then she gets cast in Twilight Zone, Punky Brewster, Growing Pains, Cheers. And within a few short years, Judith is pulling in over $100,000 a year from her acting. And Joseph and Maria start to see their bank account slowly climb out of the red. And eventually they have enough saved to buy their own 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. I mean, this is a dream for them. And everyone is happy for Judith. Except for Joseph. Joseph isn't a TV star. He's just a working man. And his young daughter is making significantly more money than him, making him no longer the breadwinner. And over time, his drinking starts getting worse and worse, and a mountain of resentment starts building up in him. And of course, he takes this out on his wife and daughter. And he and Maria argue, and they fight a lot. And at one point, Joseph threatens to unalive Maria. Like, it gets bad. But Judith, who's around 9 at this point, she doesn't let her chaotic family life stop her. She nails audition after audition, and eventually she's cast in a little movie you may have heard of called Jaws. Well, not Jaws, but one of the sequels, Jaws Revenge. But whatever, this is huge for her. And it's filming in the Bahamas, which means they'll get to spend a few months there. And predictably, Joseph's drunk ass isn't happy about this. He gets insecure and worried that Maria and Judith might run off and abandon him. So, the night before they leave, he corners Judith, and he pulls out a knife, and he threatens her. If you don't come back to me, I'll unalive you. And the next day, Judith and Maria leave to film Jaws. But Judith is never the same. And over the next few months, her mental health starts to decline, and it's beginning to show. Like, she starts pulling her eyebrows out and her cat's whiskers. But this whole time, she's still acting. She's still landing roles. And she gets cast as one of the lead voices in All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Goodbye, Charlie. I love you.
And she's cast in what ends up being her favorite role ever. She's the voice of Ducky in The Land Before Time. And she ends up delivering one of the most iconic catchphrases from that movie. Yep, yep, yep.
Yep, yep, yep.
But even as she continues to be successful, her home life is still chaos, and Joseph is still abusive. And one day, while at an audition, Judith just loses it. She starts crying uncontrollably, and no one can get her to calm down. While Maria, she knows all of this going on with Joseph is bad for them, and she's had enough. So she takes some of Judith's earnings, and she secretly rents them an apartment across town to use as sort of a safe house, so that she and Judith can low-key stay there during the day to avoid being around Joseph as much as possible. And allegedly, Maria's plan is to eventually take Judith and permanently move to that apartment, leaving Joseph for good. Until one day, out of nowhere, Judith doesn't show up to an important meeting. Instead, she's at home with her mom and dad. Now, this next part is actually some speculation, because we don't actually know exactly how this happened. But it's speculated that on that day, Joseph finds out about Maria's secret apartment and about her plans to eventually take Judith and leave him. And when he finds this out, he just loses it. And so he goes and he gets his pew-pew and he aims it at Maria and he pulls the trigger. Then he walks into Judith's bedroom, and while she's sitting there on the bed, he unalives her too. And she was only 10 years old. Then, at some point after, he dumps gasoline on them, and he sets them ablaze. And then he goes into the garage with his pew-pew, and he unalives himself. And I guess they didn't have a lot of outside family because, sadly, Judith and Maria were buried in a local cemetery in unmarked graves. But then, 16 years later, fans of Judith raised money and got them headstones. And on Judith's headstone, they made sure to put a quote from her favorite acting role. Yep, yep, yep.